I was a single parent raising a 3-year-old little girl when I moved back to Kansas. I'd been living in Paris at the time, a city that has always been and will always be my heart's home, but it had become a nightmare. My husband and I had separated, and my screenwriting career dried up. I was terrified. I really didn't know how I was going to survive. And so one day when my mother called and said to me, "Honey, why don't you just come home?" Never in my wildest dreams had I ever thought I was going to move back to Kansas, but the idea sounded very comforting and very appealing. So I moved back to Wichita. Now, Wichita is a city in the middle of the prairie, and there's a lot of wide open space around it. So on the weekend, I would strap my little girl into her car seat and we'd take off exploring. And one Saturday, we packed a picnic and took off driving into the Flint Hills, which is this amazingly beautiful landscape. And we were way out on a county road, far removed from everything except cattle and prairie. So we parked the car, got out and walked along a cattle trail and found a spot for our picnic and sat down. And I remember once we were seated in the grass, it was so high that all you could see was this beautiful blue sky and these big puffy white clouds. And having come from the big metropolis of Paris, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. It was that beautiful. And while we were reading, all of a sudden I looked up, and right over the tops of the grasses appeared out of nowhere these 2 cowboys ambling across the prairie on horseback. And I think that vision must have really lodged in my subconscious, because when I started writing Firebird, the scene where Annette sees Ethan Brown for the first time is when he's coming down a hill on horseback, flies over a fence chasing a stray calf. Firebird is a love story. It's about a rancher, a man who's torn between his love for 2 women. One of them is a woman who shares his way of life, his devotion to the land. And another is a woman who's unlike any woman he's ever met before, and whose love threatens to destroy this dream he's worked so hard to build. But it's also about the fiercely protective love of a mother for her child. I wrote into it all the fears that haunted me when she was little, and when I was lying in bed at night listening to the Kansas wind howl outdoors and wondering and worrying about what would happen to her if something should happen to me. How would I leave this earth without knowing that she was safe and protected and loved? And what kind of suffering would I endure, and what kind of choices would I make to make sure that there was someone there to take care of her? Firebird is my way of working through those fears. It's very much a story from the heart.